G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today I want to talk about some news that has blazed across the internet in the last couple of days pertaining to Nikon and what their movements are going to be in regards to the DSLR part of their range. Now, this news from Nikon originally has been picked up by Petapixel, Engadget, all sorts of outlets, some of them rather major, all over the world. If you Google this, there are a lot of entries. So clearly there is a lot of interest in this space. But from my perspective, this is a little bit of a storm in a teacup, and it's kind of old news. In other words, what did we expect? What do we think is going to happen? And what are we seeing and hearing that's happened already? We've already talked about it in this very space, perhaps more than a year ago. Anyway, let's talk about it again because it's in the news. Firstly, I want to kick off this opinion piece by sharing with you Nikon's press release in regards to this news going out into the world and being taken up by so many media outlets. There was a media article regarding Nikon's withdrawal of SLR development. This media article is only speculation, and Nikon has made no announcement in this regards. Nikon is continuing the production, sales, and service of digital SLRs. Nikon appreciate your continuous support. That is Nikon's formal statement. Now, what we can read there, and we don't have to read between the lines, they make these statements themselves. There is a media article regarding Nikon's withdrawal of SLR development. Now, hold on to that word, development. Nikon is continuing the production, sales, and service of SLRs. Nikon is continuing all of those things. So production, they're going to keep making them. Sales, they're going to keep selling them. And service, they're going to keep servicing them. For example, we just saw updates for the D7500 and the D5 and D6, all very recently. They are still working with these products. The key word here that they've missed out though is development. In that sentence, in Nikon's formal announcement, they do not say development. Now, this absolutely comes as no surprise to me, as mirrorless is clearly picking up, and it depends on which camera you're talking about, where you are in a product lineup, but mirrorless is picking up where DSLR stopped. In other words, we are now getting cameras that are meeting and exceeding, and everyone will have a different opinion on this, and it depends on your use case, it depends on what you do, so I understand everybody's different. But for some, mirrorless has already exceeded, and for others, it will exceed in the not too distant future. Now, of course, to me, one of the biggest signals of where Nikon is heading is right here. We already have it. We don't need to explore, we don't need to go hunting. It's right here, it's in our hands, and to be honest, it just keeps getting better. This is the Nikon Z9. Now, it was an astonishing camera when it was released. It was a more astonishing camera when firmware 2.0 came out, and now, yet again, Nikon have done it again with firmware 2.1, and they just keep tweaking. Now, of course, for some use cases, there would be some people out there that go, well, it's not as good as my D6 because of X, Y, and Z. And sure, that might be the case for very specific use cases. But for my use case, where 45 megapixels is the right sort of size for me, and 8K video, I shoot it in almost every video except when I'm sitting here in the studio. This camera is far, far more than a D6. And the only thing that I can think of, I haven't experimented with this, but the fact that a D6 is 20 odd megapixels and this is 45, Perhaps the D6 is slightly better at high ISO. But other than that, on every other metric, I suspect the Z9 exceeds. And not only does it exceed, but in some cases, it's just kind of a little bit nuts. Things like 120 frames per second in JPEG full frame, unbelievable. 8K video, unbelievable. 8K raw video at 60 frames per second, unbelievable. And these are just some of the myriad of things. Obviously, we've got in-body image stabilization, which is just another super useful thing to have as an all-rounder camera. There are so many things from my perspective that are from a flagship perspective, that this camera is such an astonishing tool that can just service so many areas. So to me, the writing is very clearly on the wall that mirrorless can give us so much more. And I think the architecture of this camera, which I've talked about before, it's essentially got three parts to it. It's got a sensor, it's got a processor, and it's got storage. They've removed the mirror and the shutter, and so this is just a super highway of light gathering information, and who knows how far they're going to push it. For example, firmware 2.0 gave us pre-capture, the ability to hold the button down and the camera is pre-buffering images 1 second beforehand. This is the sort of stuff that a camera designed like this can do, and a camera with a mirror and a shutter, well, yeah. And then another signal for me that's pretty clear is, well, the other end of the spectrum, and it happens to be interesting timing, isn't it? We've got the Z30 here. This entry-level camera has far more video capabilities than any DSLR entry-level camera. It can do all sorts of stuff. It is much more easy to do video on a camera like this than it is on an entry-level DSLR. Now, the world is moving to more video. I'll give you a little metric in my world. We kind of have, here in Melbourne, because we were shut down essentially for 2 years, we have BC, before COVID, and AC, after COVID. Before COVID, I was mostly a photographer and I did a little bit of video. After COVID, I do much less photography, and video is now more than 50% of my world. Absolutely fantastic, loving it, and I've got these amazing tools that I can work with. I can do things on the Z9 that I could not dream of with any other Nikon camera, whether it be DSLR or mirrorless. Not only is the Z9 the first point of reference for the future of mirrorless for both Nikon and any other company that you can think of, but it's also part of the future for creators, image makers, photographers, cinematographers, filmmakers. All of this is blending, and I think it might be 2 years ago where I talked about the convergence of video and stills in a camera, and the Z9 is pretty much the convergence that I was thinking about. We have all of this material evidence that already exists. This is the direction that not only media creation is required to go in, a mix of stills and video, but the hardware is following suit. And DSLR simply won't be able to do the hybrid level of stuff the same way mirrorless can. But don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that DSLR is still not spectacular at taking stills. And also in some video situations, it works as well. Totally true. It does not change how good these cameras are. A D850, a D5, a D4, a D6, a D750, and so on. D780, these are still fabulous cameras that will still perform and perform for a long time to come. And if you're shooting with them now and you just shoot stills and your workflow, your needs are not changing, absolutely perfect. You can still do it. That is not what this statement is about. But we can see the future coming. The future is starting to arrive for some of us, and clearly mirrorless is a tool which gives us great photography and all of the other hybrid stuff as well. So that's the world. Now, if you're a company and you're living in the world, you've got to react to the world. That's what you've got to do. You've got to react to it. You've got to go, well, all right, that's where things are heading. We've already got some amazing products in the market, D850, D750, D780, D5, D6. They will satiate people that want to stay in that space. In some cases, we have class-leading products. Great, that's all done. And there was still some F-mount lenses being released as recently as a couple of years ago. You've got all the glass that you could ever need. You've got state-of-the-art lenses for some of them. The F-mount has matured. It is mature. It absolutely will continue to perform. And Nikon states in this statement that they will be continuing to produce new, they will be selling new, and they will be servicing, looking after new their DSLR products. So there it is. We've got a mature lineup that really doesn't need any more advancement. And if you want to go to the next level of advancement, well, you can find that in the mirrorless space. Makes sense. It's not big news. It's absolutely logical. We can see that Canon are making the same sort of moves with their range, with cameras and lenses slowly being removed from their catalog. That's fine, it makes sense. And at the same time, Canon and Nikon are maturing their mirrorless lineups. This camera here is an astonishingly mature camera out of the box, and with all the firmware we're getting, it just keeps getting more mature every day. I do understand that some people are still hanging for the mythical Z8, Z6 III, Z7 III, and maybe some more firmware to update the cameras they already have. Well, some, if not all of that, will happen, and Nikon's mirrorless lineup will continue to mature. So that's where the market's going. Mirrorless is the best way to do it, and the mirrored lineup is matured, it's full, it's grown up, and it can now be sent off into the world without really the requirement to develop any more new products. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd love you to let me know in the comments below, is there any F-mount, is there any DSLR products that you would like to see made new today that would somehow be better than where mirrorless is heading? And I say that not adversarially, I say that literally. Is there something that I and many others have not thought of as to what DSLR could do? Let me know in the comments below. To me, this information from Nikkei, along with the response from Nikon, it's logical, it makes perfect sense. And honestly, working with this mirrorless equipment and all of the lenses that are coming out, it's an astonishing system. It really does deliver. And each individual, all of us out there, we all move into this space at a different speed. Some of us are early adopters. I jumped in right at the very start, and others it might take 10 years. And that's completely fine. Perhaps some will never move, and that's completely fine as well. It's all good. F is good, it's going to be supported, it's officially stated, it's going to be supported. There just isn't going to be any new developments. And I think that's fine, because that system is very, very good.
And please find a link below for voting in, is mirrorless or DSLR in your future? Which type of camera will you purchase next?
I look forward to chatting more about this in the comments below. Personally, I think it's a really exciting time. I'm glad that we've got this new paradigm because it means new things are being invented. And whatever cameras come after the Z9, gosh, they are going to be very exciting, and they're going to be cheaper than the Z9, which is going to make so many people so happy. Alrighty, well, it's been so good to see you. I do look forward to seeing you again. And if this is your first time here, I would love you to subscribe. Please share and please like, and I look forward to seeing you soon out there with the two ends of the Nikon mirrorless lineup, the Z30 and the Z9. All right, bye for now.